Hello and welcome to this video on strategic planning for Brexit. My name is Rob Beardmore. I'm from the Practical Law in-house team. This video is intended to help you to undertake strategic planning with the business and to engage with the business in planning for Brexit. Hard Brexit is, in our view, a complete withdrawal from the European Union framework. And this seems to be the line that the UK government is taking. Theresa May's sort of described this in recent speeches as a smooth Brexit, so a smooth path to sovereignty away from the European Union framework. I think businesses need to start making plans on the basis of a hard Brexit and scope in a worst case scenario for them, or even a best case scenario. Because Brexit obviously has winners and losers. Each business is going to need to scope in the risks that they need to mitigate and also the opportunities that they need to make the most of. But there's obviously still huge uncertainty. We've got the 170 questions that the opposition has posed to the government that sort of underline the complexity of Brexit and what it's not simply Brexit means Brexit. There's also the question of there's various constitutional challenges, such as the Northern Ireland challenge, which is yet to come. And then there's the French and German elections coming up next year, which are going to impact the other side of the argument, as it were. Senior lawyers, especially General Counsel, need to be heavily involved in planning for Brexit. There should be a twin-track approach to Brexit strategy. The first track would be what we'd probably describe as contingency planning. This is a scoping exercise and involves setting up a steering committee or a similar body of people from across the business to understand what the impact of Brexit, or a hard Brexit as we've defined it, could be for the business in terms of regulatory environment, in terms of the loss of potential markets, and in terms of the impact on clients and suppliers and supply chains, but also the opportunities that it could present as well. Once the sort of worst case scenario has been scoped, then it's incumbent upon the General Counsel or the senior lawyer to get involved in the strategy around lobbying of the government or through trade associations. Of course, the government's provided some certainty with the Great Repeal Bill, but the key word there is repeal, so it's very much up for grabs what that will mean, and so it's incumbent upon businesses to get involved in shaping the outcome. The General Counsel could play a leading role, particularly in smaller businesses, but maybe a supporting role to government relations professionals in larger businesses. And the second track, as it were, is the wait-and-see approach. And I heard a former senior government lawyer speak the other day, saying that we should be listening to the mood music periodically to see listen to the news, listen carefully to what's going on in terms of, say, the French and German elections, which I talked about, but also what the UK government is thinking, and it could change its strategy substantially in the next 23 weeks. There are some key steps that businesses can be making now, such as obviously considering the loss of passporting rights for some businesses will be key. So looking at alternative domiciles to conduct their activities through, and I'm sure many businesses are already doing this, but also undertaking a contractual review across all their contracts with key suppliers and clients. They also need to be future-proofing contracts to make sure that future contracts have the right clauses to ensure an escape or alternative arrangements if Brexit doesn't pan out in the way we're currently forecasting it will. General Counsel and senior lawyers in businesses need to be thinking carefully about their external counsel support in terms of where it's located and also in terms of the expertise that they currently offer. Is it fit for purpose for the sort of evolving events of Brexit which are coming on the horizon? Changes should be made as soon as possible, because obviously it takes a while for external counsel to understand a business, and also there are going to be cost implications, so there might be some difficult conversations to be had with the finance team. And it's important, obviously, to also look internally. Are the current team, do they have the skill sets, do they have their expertise and knowledge to deal with the evolving events? Is there a case for bringing in new resources? Is there a case for trying to upskill the current resources? Brexit's a great opportunity for junior lawyers and lawyers at all levels of the business. So it should be an easy sell to ask them to step up and have a role in influencing events. Each business is very different, and the outcome of the steering committee will be very different in each case. But we can offer some general guidance here. Generally speaking, there should be a lot of dialogue with all functions of the business. A key area of focus is obviously going to be people. The human resources team needs to be engaged and speaking to legal on a regular basis about issues that are going to crop up. The freedom of movement principle is clearly going to be under the microscope, and clear communication needs to be made with individuals concerned, so you EU nationals and so on. Key staff need to be reassured that they're going to be looked after. A close eye needs to be kept on discrimination or discriminatory practices in retention and recruitment. With regard to EU nationals, obviously we're still part of the EU, so freedom of movement is an intrinsic part of that membership. The law around agency workers and perhaps the law around TUPE is likely to change it to some degree if the UK withdraws from the EU. So if these are intrinsic parts of business models, then clearly these need to be looked at closely. So I think legal needs to be a holding hand perhaps for the HR team. And clearly the finance team is going to be heavily involved. They're going to be concerned in the short term about writing contracts which allow flexibility to allow for currency fluctuations and so on. In the longer term, they're going to be concerned about the UK's potential withdrawal from the EU tax treaties and what that's going to mean for the operational side of dealing with taxation. Where intellectual property is central to the business, clearly some forward planning may be needed because the UK is likely to withdraw from certain harmonised IP regimes. So there may be some costs in order to ensure that the business is properly covered. There's already a huge amount on Brexit on the Practical Law Brexit webpage, but in particular I'm planning to do a practice note to assist businesses with setting out their lobbying strategy and also dealing with the steering committee and that framework. Underneath this video there's a link to some slides that I prepared which may be helpful to you.